You do a little bit more. We're talking with Jeffrey Wright, probably one of the most versatile actors I've ever seen. You are incredible. You transform in ways that I don't even know if race or whatever, like you transcend all of that when you're in front of the screen. It's brilliant, which is why you have Tonys and Emmys and stuff and such. How'd you
Thank
get involved with We Are Not Done Yet? Because it's a military, you're chronicling the stories of people who have gone through some things, serving this country, PTSD, sexual abuse. Some of these stories made me so angry
you.
that our government, one woman was sexually touched
Yes,
inappropriately, went and told her superiors, and basically said that the life of the person or the career of the person that assaulted her was more valuable
than
than
her.
hers. And then she went on to get raped a couple of times, and she's, why would I tell at
Right.
this point? But these are people serving this country.
That's right.
What brought you to We Are Not Done Yet?
Well, I think there's a segment of our population that thinks they own the veterans' story. They own the politics around the military. When we have a conversation around police brutality that these NFL players, Colin Kaepernick and folks are trying to inspire, all of a sudden the troops come into that conversation. But no, we're talking about police brutality. But the troops are brought in. When we're talking about immigration now, all of a sudden you have this guy talking about he's going to take 5,000 troops and put them on the southern border. But that's a conversation about immigration. What are you going to ask them to do? To hunt down women and children?
Yeah, he said if they throw rocks. Yeah.
But they think they own this kind of conservative white aspect of our society thinks that they own the military, and I don't think that that's the case. The military is a diverse group in terms of race and religion and politics. And I think we all need to pay greater attention because if they do own that space, they have a lot of explaining to do. Because you heard the rhetoric during the campaign about veteran suicide. That rate hasn't changed. The conversation's changed because they're no longer campaigning. So now when Trump was talking about that, now he's talking about the way the media presents is reporting on him as opposed to talking about these issues. So anyway, that's a long way of saying that I started paying more attention to veterans issues over time. I kind of grew up to no longer take some of the things that I used to take for granted. I went to Sierra Leone, for example, when there was a war happening, war zone. First war zone I'd ever been to. It was a ceasefire at the time. That was 2001. I went there.
Why?
I went there because I was studying the war for a long time. I was shooting the movie Ali in Mozambique with Will Smith playing Ali. There was a guy
You
there. I played Howard Bingham.
Yeah.
There was a guy there who was working on the movie who lived in Sierra Leone. He invited me to come back with him to see with my own eyes what was happening. And if you ever go to a war zone, the one thing that you never take for granted anymore is security and order and the people who work to restore the order, namely those who go to fight the battle. And it started changing my way of thinking about the military and people who serve. And then I started a foundation. We started doing work over there, economic development work over time. And I met two retired generals from the U.S. Army, African Americans, both Vietnam vets. One of them went on to become, we founded this foundation together, and one of them was our executive director. His name was Frederick Lay, retired Major General. He came to speak to this group of veterans that I work with in this film, but he taught me so much, great respect. And he came from a long line of black folks who served in the military. One time he went to a funeral for the oldest, had been the oldest living a Buffalo Soldier. It was a cousin of
Wow.
his. But anyway, I started thinking, more respectfully about the military. And long story short, it led me to having this opportunity to come down and direct this group of soldiers, this group of men and women, soldiers, Marines, sailors, in stage reading of poetry that they were using to address their trauma. They were
pain,
writing
yeah.
writing poetry to confront their trauma and to heal themselves and heal one another. And one of them had the idea, let's do this on a stage. And they needed a little help. And so Seema Reza, who's the poet who leads them in this, I was connected to her. And I said, yeah, I can come down. I never served in the military, but I served in the theater. So
Right.
I can come down and bring my theater experience to bear and direct you through this process. And let's see where we go with it. And that's what the film follows. It follows their story. Although the film was kind of accidental, we were focused on this theatrical piece, and there was a woman named Serene Herabedian, who's the director, who was quietly in the corner just watching the process, and we were kind of unaware of it because we were focused on the theatrical piece. And at the end of the day, it was one of the most powerful nights that I've ever had in the theater, because these people are so powerful, so courageous.
Yes.
They're such honorable people that have been dishonored once they could no longer serve, dishonored by aspects of the military, dishonored by society who forget them or misunderstand them. And they were so beautiful that night on stage. And I asked Serene the next day, I said, can you show me what you've been filming? And I looked at it, and it was just really comprehensively captured the emotion and the thinking and the lyricism of the work that they had done. I took it to HBO. I said, I think we can expand on this and have something, an interesting story that needs to be shared. And they agreed, and the film will air November 8th, Thursday, 8 p.m. We are not done yet.
Right, and Veterans Day is in conjunction with it. If you weren't at HBO with Westworld, if you didn't win an Emmy with Angels in America, would you have been able to get this? Because documentaries are tough to get greenlit.
Well, I've done a lot of work with HBO. It certainly helped. When I called Sheila Nevins, who was at the time was the head of, their documentary department, Nancy Abraham is now. Sheila's since left, but when I called her, she answered my phone. Yeah, she answered my call. So I'm appreciative of that. But HBO has been, a creative home for me for a long time. The first film I did with them was in 2001, was Boycott. That's where I met Carmen Ejogo, the mother of my two children. So HBO has always been a creative space for me, and they certainly welcome this group of veterans into that space because they've done a long line of projects like this, and it fit within an interest that they have as a company. And also, Serene Herabedian did a beautiful job in filming this. And then we went back and we captured portraits of some of the participants in the film. She captured those beautifully, and then we edited this down to the bone. Man, we tried.
It's beautifully
and the
done.
music as well is gorgeous. A guy named White is a composer. My friend Pat Moore Lewis on violin, who plays violin at the Metropolitan Opera. He came down for the night. I said, Pat Moore, I'm working with these vets. Would you come down? He said, yeah, man, I'll come down there. He played. So he plays on the soundtrack, as well as a pianist named Mark Meadows. But everyone came to gather around this group of veterans, because if you hear their stories, I think you want to reach out. And that's the hope behind this, is that we will take their stories on board, hear them, feel them, and be moved by them to do a little more than we've done